My name is Diane Carter, and I'm 46 years old. On a Friday afternoon in October 2025, at exactly 4:17 p.m., I sat in Conference Room C at Ascent Systems Denver headquarters, watching four executives realize they just handed me the keys to their own downfall. Sign this resignation letter, or we terminate you immediately. Those were the exact words Marcus Bell, the CFO, spoke to me cold, clinical, and utterly convinced they had me cornered. After 21 years of unwavering dedication, I was given 30 minutes to choose between walking away with nothing or signing away my rights for a pittance. I chose to resign, but I wrote my own version. One sentence, 42 words, carefully calibrated, legally airtight, and loaded with consequences they never saw coming. 5 days later, at 7:43 a.m., Dominion Corporate Holdings General Counsel called me, his voice tight with panic. Miss Carter, we need to discuss the precise language in your resignation letter. Before we go any further, if this story resonates with you, if you've ever been made to feel disposable after giving your best years to a company, please hit subscribe and drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to know how far this message has traveled. For 21 years, I served as Senior Director of Global Operations at Ascent Systems, a software development company based in Denver, Colorado, specializing in enterprise resource planning solutions for manufacturing firms. I started in July 2004 as a junior operations analyst, fresh out of Colorado State University with an MBA and a $42,000 annual salary. I lived in a tiny studio apartment where rent consumed more than half my take home pay. By October 2025, my compensation had grown to $192,000 plus substantial quarterly bonuses, full health benefits, and $52,000 invested stock options. I led a department of 41 professionals across North America, Europe, and Asia. My division generated $63 million in annual revenue, 14% above projections. But my real value wasn't just in numbers. I was the institutional memory of Ascent Systems. When our CEO forgot the terms of a decade-old client agreement, my phone rang. When finance needed transaction records from 2007 that no current database retained, they came to me. When board members questioned why a certain process existed, I provided the historical context that saved months of reinvention. My email archives stretched back to 2004, meticulously organized by client, project, and outcome. I maintained vendor relationships that predated most of the current staff. I understood contract clauses negotiated before half the management team had even graduated college. For 21 years, I was indispensable until suddenly I wasn't. The trouble began 8 months before that October confrontation. In February 2025, Ascent Systems was acquired by Dominion Corporate Holdings, an $11.4 billion conglomerate with a well-documented pattern acquire mid-sized tech firms, eliminate high-earning, experienced employees, and replace them with recent graduates earning less than half the salary and asking zero questions. I'd watched this exact strategy gut three competitors in our industry over the prior 18 months. I knew the playbook by heart. The acquisition finalized on February 14th, Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on me. A week later, the new leadership team arrived. Nathan Reeves, age 35, the new CEO, Yale MBA graduate, whose only executive experience was running a startup that imploded after burning through $40 million in venture capital. Marcus Bell, 33, the new CFO, formerly a senior consultant at Bain& Company, brilliant with financial models but clueless about the human machinery that keeps a business running. And Tara Lynn, 37, Dominion's newly appointed SVP of Operations, who'd spent just 18 months at corporate headquarters and believed 8 months managing a failing software division elsewhere made her an expert in our field. They held a company-wide meeting on March 3rd at 10 a.m. Nathan stood in the main conference room, a space I'd personally designed during our 2013 relocation, selecting everything from the ergonomic chairs to the exact shade of gray on the walls, and delivered the speech I'd heard nearly verbatim from three other acquired companies. We're incredibly excited about this partnership. Nothing fundamental is going to change. Your positions are secure. Dominion acquired Ascent because of your exceptional talent, and we're committed to preserving that culture. When executives promise stability, it means upheaval is already in motion. That night at 10:23 p.m., I updated my resume. Then I did something far more important. I began documenting everything. Every email, every process manual, every vendor contract, every client history, every policy exception. I backed it all up to three separate encrypted external hard drives with military grade AES-256 encryption and stored them in different locations at home. My father, Martin, spent 32 years as a construction foreman fighting for workers' rights. He taught me one rule when I got my first retail job at 15: never sign anything without reading it three times, and never let people in expensive suits bully you just because they have fancy titles. You have rights, know them, use them. The termination started in March, exactly 4 weeks after the acquisition closed. On March 24th at 8:47 a.m., they fired 15 employees. All were over 42 years old. All earned above $115,000. All had deep institutional knowledge. Within 6 weeks, all were replaced by recent college grads making $62,000 to $68,000. HR called it organizational realignment. I called it systematic age discrimination and wage theft. But I kept my observations private and continued documenting every exit interview summary I could access, every replacement hire announcement, every meeting where cost structure or generational perspective was mentioned as a factor. In April, they began targeting me. On April 18th, I was abruptly removed from the quarterly strategic planning session I'd facilitated for 9 consecutive years. When I asked Nathan directly, he waved it off. We're bringing fresh perspectives to that process. We appreciate your past contributions, though. On April 29th, four of my core responsibilities, vendor negotiations, client escalation protocols, budget forecasting, and legacy system oversight, were reassigned to Ethan Cole, a 27-year-old manager who'd been with Ascent for just 9 months and had zero understanding of our two 0-year-old ERP integrations or the trust based relationships I'd cultivated with key suppliers. On May 15th, during a department wide meeting, Tara openly questioned my adaptability to modern operational methodologies, implying I was obsolete. Classic corporate gaslighting designed to make me quit voluntarily so they wouldn't owe severance. But I refused. I showed up every day, performed flawlessly, and documented every slight, every exclusion, every undermining comment. My personal file remains spotless. 21 years of exceeds expectations reviews, zero disciplinary actions, and company awards for operational excellence 2017, Leadership Innovation 2019, and Distinguished Service 2022. They couldn't fire me for cause, and they knew it. On June 27th, they tried a new tactic. Marcus summoned me to his office at 4:45 p.m. Always a red flag. Friday afternoon meetings mean bad news. Diane, we're restructuring operations to align with Dominion's global framework, he said, avoiding eye contact. We're eliminating your current role and creating a new position, Senior Operations Coordinator. You're welcome to apply, but the compensation is $94,000 annually. That was a $98,000 pay cut for nearly identical responsibilities, just a slightly diminished title. It was textbook constructive dismissal disguised as corporate evolution. I smiled politely. I'll need some time to consider this. I walked straight home and called Rachel Monroe, the employment attorney I'd retained in April after the first wave of terminations. Rachel specialized in wrongful termination and age discrimination cases with 28 years of experience, 180 plus client victories, and an 81% success rate against Fortune 500 companies. That's classic constructive dismissal, she said immediately. Don't accept it. Wait for them to make the next move and keep documenting everything. I waited 38 days. On August 4th at 3:15 p.m., Nathan's executive assistant emailed, Mr. Reeves requests your presence in conference room C immediately. Conference room C, not his office. That meant witnesses. That meant official termination. I pulled out the resignation letter Rachel and I had drafted 4 weeks earlier after 6 hours of meticulous legal review. I folded it, placed it in my blazer pocket, and walked in. At the long mahogany table sat Nathan, Marcus, Tara, and Julia Morse from Human Resources, 4 matching portfolios, 4 pens, 4 faces radiating false sympathy. Nathan gestured to the isolated chair across from them, the defendant's seat. Diane, thank you for coming, he began. We've made difficult decisions about leadership structure. After extensive review, we're moving in a different direction with the operations role. Translation, you're fired. We're hiring someone younger and cheaper. I said nothing. Rachel had coached me. Let them talk, let them threaten, stay calm, observe. Marcus took over. We're offering 2 options. One, resign effective immediately. We'll provide 3 weeks of severance, $11,077 plus accrued vacation. We'll give a neutral reference. Clean break. Option 2, Tara added with a smirk. We terminate you for restructuring. You receive nothing, and your file will note your position was eliminated due to redundancy, which may raise questions for future employers. It was a crude threat wrapped in HR jargon. Inside the manila folder was a pre-written resignation letter releasing all claims for $11,077. I looked at them confident, smug, utterly unaware of the trap they'd walked into. I thought of my father. I'll resign, I said calmly. Relief washed over their faces. Excellent, Nathan said. Just sign here. I'll write my own resignation letter, I interrupted. The smiles faltered. We've prepared one that covers all legal requirements, Marcus said stiffly. I'll write my own, I repeated firmly. Unless you're going to dictate the exact words I can use in my personal letter? Nathan hesitated. He couldn't force me without admitting coercion. Fine, have it by 5 p.m. I left at 3:37 p.m., returned to my office, locked the door, and opened the draft I'd prepared weeks ago during a sleepless night. 1 sentence. 42 words. I messaged Rachel. They delivered the ultimatum. Resign or be terminated. Is this still our strategy? She replied in under 2 minutes. Perfect timing. Send it exactly as written. Don't add anything. Don't explain. Just that sentence. Then wait. I printed it on accent letterhead, signed with my full legal name in blue ink, made 4 copies, one for HR, one for Rachel, one for my safe deposit box, one for my home files, and walked back to conference room C at 4:17 p.m. They were sipping coffee, already celebrating their victory. I handed the letter to Nathan without a word. He skimmed it quickly, barely reading. Fine, fine. This is acceptable. HR will process your check. I'll need all severance details in writing, I said, including exact amounts, payment timeline, and confirmation of my 142.5 hours of accrued vacation and $4,287 in unreimbursed Boston client expenses. Marcus rolled his eyes, the condescending flicker young executives reserve for difficult women. It's all included. You can go now, I left, packed my family photos, my 2016 conference mug, the desk plant my team gave me for my 20th anniversary, and my mentor's fountain pen. My phone buzzed with texts from my team, but I didn't reply. Rachel's order was absolute radio silence. I drove home at 5:04 p.m., poured a glass of wine, and waited. They figured it out 5 days later. Tuesday, August 9th, 7:43 a.m. My phone rang. Unknown Denver number. Diane Carter speaking. Miss Carter, this is Daniel Pruitt, General Counsel for Dominion Corporate Holdings. I need to discuss your resignation letter immediately. I set down my coffee and smiled. Of course, Mr. Pruitt, how can I help? There's confusion about the phrase effective upon receipt of complete settlement of all compensation, benefits, stock options, and other amounts owed under my employment agreement and applicable law. What did you mean by that? I opened my laptop to the 63 tab spreadsheet, Rachel, and I had built. It's quite straightforward, Mr. Pruitt. My resignation becomes effective only when I receive full payment of all amounts owed under my contract and Colorado law. Until then, I remain an employee with full salary, benefits, office access, and legal protections. Silence. Then, frantic rustling. And what exactly do you believe we owe you? I walked him through it. $14,769.23 in base salary through August 4th, $13,154.18 for 142.5 vacation hours at 90, $2.31 hour, $4,287 in expenses totaling $32,210.41, but that's just the beginning. His voice rose slightly. Fourth, my 2025 performance bonus. Section 6.2 of my 2018 employment agreement guarantees 80% of base salary for meeting targets. I exceeded them, $63 million in revenue, 14% above plan. Bonus, $153,600. I heard something clatter, probably his coffee cup. Fifth, my stock options, 52,000 shares, vested immediately upon change of control triggered by your acquisition at $22.18 share. That's $1,153,360. The silence was deafening. Sixth, my severance. Section 8.4 states, if terminated without cause or I resign for good reason within 24 months of a change of control, I get 20 months salary continuation plus benefits. That's $320,000 plus $31,500 in health premiums. You're saying we owe you over $1.6 million? $1,690,670.41 to be exact, plus 8% annual interest from August 4th. And since I'm still employed, I'm accruing $738.46 per day in salary, plus full benefits. 3 hours and 42 minutes later, Marcus called, screaming before I could say hello. What the hell did you do? I resigned, as you requested. You just didn't read it carefully. 28 minutes after he hung up, my work email reactivated. IT panicked. I logged in and found an internal chain titled Urgent Carter Resignation is Legally Exposure. They'd sent my letter to 6 law firms. All confirmed, conditional resignation is legally valid in Colorado. One attorney wrote, you accepted it without recognizing the conditionality. She's correct on all counts. Strongly recommend immediate settlement. Daniel called again at 6:18 p.m. Dominion offers $950,000 as full settlement. I'll leave it, I said. I'm owed $1,690,670.41 under contract. If you don't pay, I remain employed indefinitely and file suit. At 8:47 p.m., he called back. Deal. $1,754,120.41 includes legal fees. Letter of recommendation by Friday. Settlement agreement tomorrow. On September 3rd at 1:18 p.m., the wire hit my account. Same day, FedEx delivered Nathan's signed letter praising my 21 years of exemplary service. I doubt he wrote a word. Rachel reviewed the 52-page agreement standard release, mutual non-disparagement, confidentiality I signed on September 6th. My resignation became effective that afternoon at 3:22 p.m. The epilogue is deeply satisfying. Nathan Reeves was fired in April 2026 after missing quarterly targets by 31%. Turns out gutting your institutional knowledge doesn't improve performance. Marcus Bell quit in March 2026, citing irreconcilable differences in his resignation letter. The irony wasn't lost on me. Tarlin remains now managing a company hemorrhaging clients because no one remembers how the legacy systems work or who to call at critical vendors. Four of my former teammates have since faced similar ultimatums. I connected them all with Rachel. Three have secured six-figure settlements. The fourth is still on payroll. Her employer is calculating how much it costs to actually honor her contract. As for me, I'm semi-retired at 46. I do selective consulting at $575 hour, but my real mission is career defense planning, teaching experienced professionals how to document, understand their rights, and protect themselves. 19 people have reached out in the past year. All are being pushed out for being too expensive. I teach them what my father taught me: know your rights, document everything, and never let fancy titles intimidate you. This story isn't about greed or vengeance, it's about dignity. When you've spent 21 years building systems, relationships, and knowledge that keep a company alive, you have value that can't be replaced by a spreadsheet or a 27-year-old with a LinkedIn profile. And when a corporation tries to discard that value for pennies on the dollar, you have every right and every legal tool to demand what you're owed. Never sign anything without reading it 3 times. Never assume executives are smarter. They're often just louder and better dressed. Never underestimate someone with decades of experience and access to competent counsel. And always read your employment contract, not what someone tells you it says, but what it actually says. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting exactly what you're owed.